I never thought I would find myself here, living in a suburban neighborhood that seemed perfect on the surface. The houses lined the streets like soldiers on parade, each lawn meticulously trimmed, each driveway spotless. My name is Mark, and I'm a 35-year-old graphic designer. I work from home, which at first sounded like a dream come true, but truthfully it can feel isolating. I have a lovely wife named Sarah. She's 33, and we've been married for nearly 10 years. Sarah was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Beautiful, intelligent, and kind, she lit up my life with a smile that could brighten the darkest of days. We met in college, and I was instantly drawn to her laughter, her sharp wit, and her passion for life. After graduation, we wasted no time in tying the knot. We had dreams of starting a family, owning a bigger house, and growing old together. Our life was comfortable, perhaps a bit too comfortable. The routine of waking up, going to work, having dinner, and watching our favorite shows together became a repetitive cycle. I noticed that the spark we once shared began to dim, but I convinced myself that it was just a phase, a side effect of adulthood. I was always busy with work, and Sarah had her own commitments. While I focused on my career, she poured herself into her job as a nurse. Despite the monotony, I truly believed we were happy. But everything began to shift when Sarah started coming home later and later from work. At first, I assumed it was just the demands of her job. After all, nursing is a tough profession. But as the nights turned into weeks, I began to feel an unsettling knot in my stomach. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. One evening, while I was working late at my desk, I decided to confront Sarah about her late hours. "Hey, you've been coming home pretty late lately. Is everything all right at work?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. She looked taken aback, her eyes widening for just a moment. "Oh, you know how it is. We've been short-staffed and I've picked up extra shifts. It's nothing to worry about." I nodded, but deep down I felt a chill creeping over me. I couldn't help but think that something was up. A week later, while I was cleaning up around the house, I stumbled upon her phone lying on the kitchen counter. The screen was lit up and I noticed a text message notification. It was from a number I didn't recognize. Curiosity got the best of me, and before I thought better of it, I picked up her phone. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll miss you. XOXO." My heart sank. I knew in that moment that my suspicions were not unfounded. My wife, my partner, was cheating on me. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a profound sadness that gripped me tightly. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in my hand. I placed the phone back down gently, as if it were a ticking time bomb. That night, Sarah came home late, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly disheveled. I pretended everything was normal, but the tension in the air was palpable. I lay awake for hours, unable to process what I had just discovered. Did I confront her? Did I talk about it? I needed a plan, but I had no idea what that plan would be. I felt a rising tide of anger, and a dark seed of revenge began to take root in my mind. I wanted to know more, to expose the betrayal that ripped through the foundation of our marriage. For now, I'd play the waiting game. But I wouldn't wait long. This was just the beginning. The days that followed felt like a slow-motion nightmare. I went through my routine, but every moment was tainted by the knowledge that my wife was betraying our vows. I had never felt so alone, even when she was right beside me. Each smile she gave me felt like a knife to my heart. Each kiss was laced with deceit. I couldn't stand it. I needed evidence, proof that I wasn't imagining things, that my fears were valid. It started innocently enough. I began tracking Sarah's movements. I knew her work schedule, of course, but I also started to pay attention to the little things. What time she got home, how she answered her phone, the way her body language changed around me. I became a shadow in my own life, a silent observer waiting for the moment when the truth would be laid bare. One afternoon, I decided to follow her. I told myself it was just a casual drive to clear my head, but I was really on a mission. I waited until she left for work, her usual routine of a quick goodbye and a kiss still fresh in my mind. I hopped into my car and followed her at a distance, my heart racing. She drove to a small cafe on the other side of town. I parked a few blocks away and watched as she entered the establishment, her head held high, a smile gracing her lips. I waited, my stomach churning with anxiety, and for the first time since I had discovered her betrayal, I felt an overwhelming urge to confront her right then and there. But I resisted. I needed to see the bigger picture. After what felt like an eternity, I noticed a man enter the cafe shortly after her. He was tall, with dark hair and an easy smile. They greeted each other with a warmth that made my blood boil. They sat too close together and laughed too freely. It was as if they were in their own world, one that excluded me completely. My chest tightened at the sight. I was no longer just the betrayed husband. I was a man on the brink of destruction. I pulled out my phone and began to record, my hands shaking as I captured the moment. I wanted proof that I could confront her with, something undeniable that would strip away the last vestiges of doubt. I watched them share whispers and stolen glances, and every laugh he elicited from her felt like a punch to my gut. After an hour, they left the cafe together. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They walked side by side, their bodies angled toward one another. I followed them as they walked down the street, my heart racing with anger and betrayal. I couldn't help but imagine what they were whispering to each other, the secrets that didn't include me. Eventually, they turned into an apartment building. I parked my car at a distance, my heart pounding in my chest. It was one of those cheap, run-down buildings that had seen better days. I felt sick as I realized what might be happening inside. I couldn't let myself be seen. I didn't want to tip them off. So I waited, praying for a sign, a moment that would solidify my suspicions. After what felt like ages, I saw them exit the building together. They were laughing again, and my heart sank. They stood on the sidewalk for a few moments, and then he leaned down to kiss her goodbye. My world shattered in that instant as I watched Sarah's face light up in a way I hadn't seen in years. They lingered for just a moment too long, and then she turned and walked away from him, a bounce in her step that was nothing short of infuriating. I drove home, the streets blurring past me as I fought back tears of rage and humiliation. I had seen enough. I knew now that this was not just a passing fling. This was something deeper, something that threatened to consume everything I held dear. I had to devise a plan, a way to confront her and make her understand the pain she had caused. I spent the night packing, thinking about my options. I felt like a puppet master, strings tangled and twisted in a way I could hardly comprehend. I could confront her, but I wanted more than that. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the devastation she had caused. I wanted revenge, but not in a way that would destroy me in the process. The next day, I acted as if nothing had happened. I greeted her with a smile and made her breakfast. I watched her eat. Every bite she took an exercise in restraint for me. I had to keep up the facade while I formulated my plan. I would gather more evidence, more proof of her betrayal, and then I would confront her when it mattered most. The morning passed into afternoon, and my mind raced with thoughts of how to execute my revenge. I wasn't merely going to confront her. I wanted to make an impression, to ensure that my pain was reflected back at her in a way that left her reeling. I felt the darkness creeping in, but I was determined to play it smart. The next few days turned into a blur of spying and strategizing. I continued to follow Sarah, documenting her meetings with the man in the cafe, whom I still didn't know by name. I learned that his apartment was a habitual stop on her route. She would often leave work and go straight there. My heart twisted each time I saw her walk away from our home, knowing she was going to someone else instead. I now had a treasure trove of evidence. I had recorded several instances of her rendezvous, and I had saved the text messages I had found on her phone. I felt a mixture of adrenaline and dread. Revenge was consuming my thoughts, and I was determined to execute my plan with precision. I needed a way to make her realize the gravity of her betrayal, to understand how deeply she had hurt me. I began developing a strategy that would involve more than just confrontation. I wanted to expose her infidelity in a way that would leave a mark. My idea was to bring her lover into the light, to confront both of them together, and to force her to face the truth of what she had done. But I needed to ensure that it would be a moment she wouldn't forget, a moment that would haunt her. I reached out to a few friends, the ones I could trust, to figure out how to lure Sarah and her lover together. I concocted a story about a surprise dinner party I wanted to throw, inviting our closest friends and family. I told them it would be an intimate gathering, and I wanted them to bring their significant others. I carefully selected the date, a Friday evening, the perfect time when I knew Sarah would be free. The plan was to stage the dinner at our house, ensuring that I had everything set up perfectly. I envisioned Sarah arriving, thinking it was just a fun evening with friends, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. I would tell her I wanted to invite her special friend as well, and I had to see her expression when she realized that her secret was about to be revealed. The day before the dinner, I sent an innocent text to her lover, using a different phone number and pretending to be a mutual friend. I wanted to ensure he would show up, unaware that he was walking into a carefully laid trap. I crafted a message that hinted at an informal gathering at my place, emphasizing that Sarah wanted him there. It worked. He responded with excitement, saying he'd be there. As the day of the dinner approached, I set everything in motion. I planned a sumptuous meal, making sure to choose dishes that Sarah loved. I arranged the table, lit candles, and created an atmosphere that screamed intimacy. On the surface, it looked like a perfect night for friends and good food, but underneath, it was a storm waiting to erupt. As I prepared, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I wasn't just planning a dinner. I was preparing for a confrontation that would change the course of my life. I would have to stay composed, calm even, as the weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air. I was ready to burn down the facade of our marriage, and I would make sure Sarah felt the heat. When the evening finally arrived, my friends began to trickle in, each one blissfully unaware of the drama that was about to unfold. I greeted them with a smile, my heart racing with every knock at the door. I made small talk, pouring drinks and pretending everything was fine. I watched Sarah move through the crowd, a vision of happiness, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. As the guests filled our dining room, I felt the tension heighten. I casually mentioned to Sarah that her friend would be joining us soon, and she merely smiled, assuming it was someone she knew and loved. Little did she know that her friend would be arriving shortly, and the atmosphere would shift from jovial to electric in an instant. It was time. I glanced at the clock, and as if on cue, there was a knock at the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it, revealing the man I had seen with Sarah so many times. He looked dashing, dressed casually but with an air of confidence that made my blood boil. I forced a smile as I stepped aside to let him in, my demeanor calm despite the tempest inside me. "Hey, you made it," I exclaimed, trying to keep my voice steady as I introduced him to the rest of the group. He greeted everyone warmly, and I could see Sarah's face light up when she noticed him. She quickly made her way over, her excitement palpable. It was a moment I had anticipated. Her joy was about to come crashing down. I let the evening unfold, allowing the conversations to flow and the laughter to fill the room. I knew I had to wait for the right moment. After dinner, as we cleared the plates and poured more wine, an air of casual camaraderie hung over us. But I could feel the tension building, the anticipation bubbling just below the surface. Finally, when the time felt right, I made my move. I stood up, raising my glass. "Hey everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?" My voice cut through the chatter and all eyes turned to me. I felt a mixture of nerves and exhilaration. This was it. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my gaze locking onto Sarah's, "but I have a special surprise for one of our guests." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Sarah, I think it's time you meet your asterisk friend properly." The room fell silent as I pulled out my phone, the video of Sarah and her lover at the cafe playing in the background. Gasps filled the air, and I could feel the heat radiating from Sarah as she turned pale. I locked eyes with her as the realization hit. "You thought you could keep this from me. I have proof, Sarah. You can't deny it now." The room erupted into chaos. Gasps echoed off the walls as the video played, capturing the intimacy of Sarah and her lover's laughter, their close proximity, and the longing in their eyes. I watched Sarah's expression transform from confusion to horror. It was as if time stood still, the reality of her betrayal crashing down around her like a house of cards. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. Our friends, who had gathered to celebrate an evening of friendship, now stood shocked, their faces painted with disbelief. I felt a sick sense of satisfaction wash over me as I witnessed the facade crumbling, her carefully constructed world shattering right before her eyes. "Mark, please." Sarah finally managed to speak, her voice laced with panic. "This isn't what it looks like. You don't understand." I cut her off, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I think it's exactly what it looks like, Sarah. You can't deny it. You've been lying to me, betraying me. You've made a fool of me, and it's time everyone knew the truth." I waved my phone in the air, the video still playing, the damning evidence undeniable. The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone was staring, waiting for her to say something, anything that could possibly explain her actions. I could see the color drain from her face, her earlier confidence replaced by desperation. The man beside her, her lover, shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between us. "Mark, this isn't fair," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "We can talk about this, just let me explain." But there was nothing left to explain. I had given her countless opportunities to come clean, to acknowledge the cracks in our marriage, but she chose deceit. "There's nothing left to talk about, Sarah. You've made your choice." I turned to the man who had been standing there awkwardly, clearly unsure of what to do. "And you thought you could just waltz into my life and take what's mine. You're just as guilty." He looked taken aback, clearly having not anticipated this confrontation. "I didn't know what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Didn't know she was married. Did you think this was just a casual fling? You're pathetic." The tension was palpable as I surveyed the room, my friends caught in a web of shock. Some looked sympathetic, others appeared to relish the drama unfolding before them. I felt a dark sense of vindication growing within me. I had finally taken control of the narrative, and I wanted Sarah to feel the weight of it. "Mark, please," she said again, her voice trembling. "I made a mistake. I thought I could make things better. I didn't mean to hurt you." I scoffed at her words. "You didn't mean to hurt me. You've been sleeping with another man for months, and you think that's just a mistake. You think I'll let you walk away from this without consequences." I could see the realization dawning on her that this was not going to end well for her. The smiles that had adorned our friends' faces had vanished, replaced by a shared understanding of the gravity of the situation. The laughter I had once enjoyed now felt foreign in my ears. "Everyone here trusted you," I continued, my voice steady as I looked around the room. "And you betrayed that trust. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration, but instead it's a revelation." With that, I stopped the video and turned to face the room, my heart pounding as I braced myself for whatever would come next. "You all deserve to know what kind of person she really is. The truth is painful, but it's necessary." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, her composure cracking under the weight of exposure. "Mark, please don't do this," she begged, but it was too late. I had crossed the point of no return. I felt a surge of power course through me. I was no longer the heartbroken husband. I was the man taking back my life. I had a plan, and now it was unfolding exactly as I had envisioned. "Let's take a moment for everyone to process this," I said, crossing my arms and leaning against the wall, watching as the reality of the situation set in for our friends. I could see the whispers starting, the shocked expressions exchanged between them. The man who had been Sarah's lover finally spoke up, his voice unsteady. "I didn't know she was married. She told me she was single." "It doesn't matter," I replied, cutting him off. "You still chose to be with her knowing the risk. You're just as responsible for this mess as she is." The room felt heavy with tension, the air thick with unspoken words. I stood there, feeling the adrenaline pulse through me, invigorating me with every heartbeat. Sarah shifted her gaze from the man to me, desperation etched across her face. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the realization that she had lost everything. "Mark, I'm so sorry," she said finally, her voice small. "I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me." "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore," I shot back, my voice low and steady. "You've made your choices, and now you'll have to live with the consequences." As the reality of her situation began to sink in, I noticed our friends' reactions shifting. Some looked sympathetic toward Sarah, while others were angry at her betrayal. I could feel the tide turning, the support I had once assumed would be. There for her was wanting. I took a deep breath, steadying myself before delivering the final blow. I want you to leave, Sarah. I want you to leave this house and everything it represents. You can take your things, but I don't want to see you again. Mark, please, she started to plead again, but I raised my hand to silence her. Just go, I said firmly, the words ringing with finality. The room fell silent again, the weight of my ultimatum hanging heavily in the air. I could see the shock on Sarah's face, her expression a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. I had taken everything from her in that moment, and I needed her to understand the magnitude of her actions. As she stood there, frozen in time, I felt a sense of relief washing over me. The shackles of betrayal that had bound me for so long were finally breaking free. I had stepped out of the shadows and into the light, ready to reclaim my life. As Sarah stood there, paralyzed by the reality of the moment, the room filled with a heavy silence that felt suffocating. I watched as her expression shifted from shock to realization and then to a kind of heartbreak that I had never seen before. This was the moment I had envisioned, the moment where she would fully understand the gravity of her actions. Mark, I can't just leave, she finally cried, her voice breaking. We built a life together. You can't throw it all away because of one mistake. I shook my head, my heart racing. You made your choice, Sarah. You chose to betray me, to destroy our marriage. You can't expect me to pretend that everything is fine after this. I could see the tears streaming down her face now, and I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was drowned out by the overwhelming anger and hurt that had been building inside me. I had lost so much in her betrayal, and I wasn't ready to forgive. The tension in the room was palpable as our friends shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. I could see a few of them exchanging quick glances, weighing their loyalties. Sarah's lover stood awkwardly by her side, clearly feeling the weight of his own complicity in this mess. I could sense that he was regretting his involvement more than ever. Finally, I turned to the group, my voice steady but firm. I appreciate you all being here tonight, but I think it's time we end this gathering. You've all witnessed something that's deeply personal, and I need some time to process everything. One of my friends, Jessica, who had always been close to Sarah, stepped forward. Mark, I know this is really hard, but maybe you should give her a chance to explain. Maybe we can work this out as a group. I felt a surge of irritation. No, Jessica, there's nothing left to explain. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a betrayal. I don't want to hear any more excuses. The room buzzed with murmurs as my friends processed what had just transpired. Some looked sympathetic toward Sarah, while others shot me looks of support. But I didn't care. I was done being the one who was hurt. Sarah wiped her tears, her expression shifting from desperation to defiance. You think you can just kick me out like this? You think I'll just walk away without a fight? Maybe that's what you want, Sarah, an easy way out, but I'm not giving you that. I replied, my voice unwavering. You threw away everything we built together, and now you'll have to face the consequences. It's over. With that, I took a step back, feeling drained but resolute. I had done what I set out to do, expose her lies, reclaim my power, and reveal the truth. It felt liberating, yet the weight of what had just happened settled heavily on my chest. The tension in the room was thick as I turned to the door, signaling that it was time for everyone to leave. I need to be alone now, I said firmly, trying to maintain my composure. One by one, my friends filed out, leaving behind a heavy silence. I could hear Sarah still sobbing softly, but I didn't turn back. I felt angry, betrayed, and lost all at the same time. I had taken a stand, but the aftermath was a bitter pill to swallow. Once the last guest had departed, I sank into the couch, the weight of the evening crashing down on me. I felt empty and hollow, as if I had just lost a part of myself. The battle was won, but at what cost? I looked around our home, and felt the memories swirl around me like ghosts, haunting and bittersweet. I knew I had to face the reality of starting over, but the thought of that felt daunting. I took out my phone and looked at the video one last time. The emotions surged within me again, but this time I felt a flicker of hope. I had exposed the truth, and now I could finally begin to heal. A few days passed, and I found myself in a haze of emotions. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a sense of liberation. I had taken control of my life, but I was still grappling with the fallout. Sarah had moved out, taking only her essentials while leaving behind the memories we had built together. I was shocked at how quickly everything had unraveled, but I refused to dwell on the past. In the days that followed, I started to reach out to my friends again. I needed support, and they rallied around me. They listened to my pain and offered their understanding. I felt like I was finally processing my grief in a healthy way. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. As the weeks turned into months, I found solace in my work and started to explore new hobbies. I threw myself into graphic design projects and even picked up photography. I realized that through the darkness, I could find light. I began to rediscover who I was outside of my marriage, and it felt good. But there were still moments when the weight of betrayal would crash over me like a wave. I would hear a song that reminded me of Sarah or see a couple laughing together, and a wave of sadness would hit me. I learned to accept those feelings, to allow myself to grieve what was lost, but I refused to let it consume me. One night, while sitting on my couch, I picked up my phone and opened Sarah's contact. I hesitated, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to reach out to see how she was doing, but I knew it would only lead to more confusion. I deleted her number instead, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. It was time to truly move on. Eventually, I started to date again, tentatively at first. I met someone new, a woman named Emily, who was kind and understanding. She didn't push me to share my past, and I appreciated that. Slowly, I began to open up about my experiences, and it felt cathartic to share my truth. As I navigated this new relationship, I learned that it was possible to love again, to trust again. Emily encouraged me to embrace life fully, and I found myself laughing and smiling more than I had in a long time. Although the scars of betrayal would always remain, they were a reminder of my strength and resilience. In the end, I came to realize that while my marriage with Sarah had ended in heartbreak, it had also led me to a new beginning. I was no longer the man who had been cheated on. I was a survivor, a warrior who had reclaimed his life. And as I looked to the future, I felt a glimmer of hope that I could find love again, this time on my own terms. Months had passed since that fateful dinner, and life had taken on a new rhythm. I had found a semblance of normalcy, despite the jagged edges left by Sarah's betrayal. I no longer felt like a man adrift in a sea of heartache. Instead, I was learning to navigate these new waters with purpose. Emily had become a significant part of my life. She was patient and empathetic, always encouraging me to share my thoughts and feelings without judgment. Our relationship blossomed, and I found myself laughing and enjoying life in ways I hadn't in a long time. She made me feel seen and valued, and I was grateful for every moment we spent together. One evening, we decided to take a trip to the coast, a welcome escape from the city. The salty breeze washed over us as we walked along the shoreline, the sun setting in a brilliant display of oranges and purples. The beauty of the moment struck me, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I realized that I was finally beginning to heal. As we strolled, my thoughts drifted back to Sarah. I had spent so much time consumed by anger and betrayal, but eventually I had found a way to forgive, not for her sake, but for my own. I wanted to release the bitterness I had carried with me for so long. I understood that I couldn't let her actions dictate my happiness any longer. "Mark, are you okay?" Emily's voice brought me back to the present. She looked at me with concern, her eyes searching mine. "Yeah, I was just thinking," I replied, forcing a smile, "about how far I've come since everything. It feels good to be here with you." She smiled back, and in that moment I felt a connection deeper than I had anticipated. I took her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers, and we continued walking in comfortable silence. The waves lapped at the shore, a soothing rhythm that echoed the tranquility I felt inside. A few weeks later, I decided it was time to confront the past one final time. I hadn't spoken to Sarah since she left, and part of me felt that I needed closure, not just for her but for myself. I meditated on the idea for days, weighing the necessity of such a conversation. Ultimately, I resolved to reach out and arrange a meeting. I sent her a text, keeping it simple and straightforward. "Hi Sarah, it's Mark. I'd like to meet and talk. Let me know when you're free." To my surprise, she responded, quickly agreeing to meet at a cafe we used to frequent. The prospect of seeing her again stirred a mix of emotions, nervousness, apprehension, and a hint of curiosity. I knew this was an essential step in my healing process, and I was determined to approach it with clarity. The day of our meeting arrived, and I found myself sitting at a corner table, my hands clasped around a warm cup of coffee. I glanced at the door, anxiety prickling at the back of my mind. When Sarah walked in, I was taken aback by how much she had changed. She looked different, weary but composed, as if the weight of the past few months had taken its toll on her. "Hi, Mark," she said softly, taking a seat across from me. "Hey," I replied, taking a deep breath. "Thanks for meeting me." The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. I could see the remorse in her eyes, a reflection of the pain we had both experienced. Finally, I broke the silence. I wanted to talk about everything, what happened to us, and how we both move forward. She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the table. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I can't express how sorry I am for everything. I was selfish and reckless, and I regret it every day." I appreciated her honesty, but I knew it wasn't enough to erase the past. "I've had a lot of time to think about what happened," I said, choosing my words carefully. "What you did hurt me, and it shattered what we had. But I've also come to realize that holding onto that pain is only hurting me more." She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Mark. I'm not saying I've completely forgiven you, it's a process, but I've chosen to let go of the anger. I want to move on, and I think for both of us it's time to close this chapter." Her eyes brimmed with tears, and I could see the weight of my words sinking in. "I wish I could take it all back," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." I nodded, feeling a pang of empathy. "I know, but we can't change the past. We can only learn from it and grow." Conversation flowed from there, a mix of reflection and raw honesty. We talked about our memories, the good times we had shared, but also the lessons that came from our pain. It felt surreal to be sitting across from her, both of us transformed by the experiences that had shaped our lives. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I stood to leave, and as I prepared to walk away, I paused for a moment. "I hope you find happiness, Sarah. You deserve it." "Thank you, Mark," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I hope the same for you." As I stepped out of the cafe, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had faced my past and made peace with it. It was liberating to let go of the burden that had weighed me down for so long. The sun shone brightly as I walked down the street, the warmth of the day reflecting the warmth I felt inside. I knew that the journey of healing was ongoing, but I felt more equipped to embrace the future. I was no longer defined by Sarah's betrayal. I was reclaiming my life, one step at a time. In the months that followed, I continued to nurture my relationship with Emily, building a foundation of trust and love. I approached each day with a newfound appreciation for life, embracing the unpredictability of it all. I had learned that pain could lead to growth, and I was determined to make the most of every opportunity. As I lay in bed one night, reflecting on everything that had transpired, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. I was ready for whatever came next, equipped with the knowledge that I could overcome even the darkest moments. And as I closed my eyes, drifting off to sleep, I knew that the future was bright, filled with promise and the possibility of new beginnings.